as the icy deep rose to meet them. Who should unexpectedly appear but Aurora resurrected, with a host of creatures queer.
Hello Internet, welcome to Games Done Wrongish. As the month of September 2017 reaches its end, it is time for me to do my monthly roundup and spotlight review. If you missed my overviews of the monthly titles, be sure to check out the links in the description below this video to catch up. First up is the Xbox Games with Gold titles. This month gave us Forza Motorsport 5, Hydro Thunder Hurricane, Battlefield 3 and Oxenfree. Out of these titles, the two that stood out the most for me were Forza Motorsport 5 and Oxenfree. Despite owning Forza since around the launch of the console, I am still yet to finish the campaign, and I feel it holds a lot of value and gameplay for anyone that did not already own it. Oxenfree I had never played before. Despite being a little short, I thought the story and voice acting were very good and gave me an enjoyable few hours. I even gave it a second playthrough to snag some achievements I missed the first time around. From the PlayStation Plus service we were given Child of Light, We Are Doomed, Infamous Second Son and Hatful Boyfriend. The two that stood out the most for me from this collection were Infamous Second Son and Child of Light. Once again, despite owning Second Son for a long time already, I still feel it holds a lot of value and gameplay. Doing the overview earlier in the month still makes me want to go back and play it again, choosing all the evil options in the karma system instead of the hero options I chose in my initial playthrough. Child of Light was a game I had tried a little when this was given via the Xbox Games with Gold titles back in April 2015, but for some reason it did not resonate with me back then. Now I'm a couple of years older, if not wiser, and the game fitted my current mood and interests. As such, it became my spotlight game for this month. So, with that in mind, let's take a look at my first Games Done Wrongish spotlight review. I may have forgotten to mention in my overview of Child of Light that Princess Aurora originates from Austria. However, she has been banished along with the sun, the moon and the stars to the mystical land of Lemuria, as her kingdom in Austria is thrown into turmoil. As stated in my overview, while playing the game you come across more playable characters that will join your party and offer extra abilities such as healing and buffing the party. Soon after I left off last time, I was introduced to the magician Finn and Aurora's stepsister Nora. Finn brings powerful offensive magic spells to the party infused with the elements fire, water and electric, which was very handy as shortly after he joins you are confronted with a boss battle against a three-headed serpent. Each head of the serpent is immune to one element whilst vulnerable to another. Fire is vulnerable to water, earth to fire and water to electric. Nora brings buffs and debuffs to the party. She can grant haste to an ally, allowing them to move faster along the action bar and therefore use more abilities per battle. She can also slow enemies, causing them to go slower on the action bar and use less abilities per battle. She also has the ability to cast an interrupt immunity on an ally. This prevents them from being interrupted and losing their place in the order of things. It was around this time that I realised that despite now having 4 members in my party, I could only ever have 2 members in play at any given time. I felt this was an oversight at first and thought that allowing 3 members at a time would have allowed for more options, such as keeping a magic damage dealer and physical damage dealer in play at all times, while switching out your healer and buffer. However, it turned out when any of your current members had their turn, they could choose to switch out with any of the remaining team members. In most games of this type, doing this action usually causes that character to use up their turn and the new character having to start again at the start of the action bar. Child of Light is different in that respect. In this game, when you switch out a character, the replacement character gets to take their turn right away in place of the leaving character. This means that if you really need a heal or buff at that moment in time, you can switch character, provide the heal or buff to the party, and on the next turn swap them back out again. As you progress, you next meet the mouse-like creature Robert. This creature comes from a village of trading mice that ride on the back of a giant mountain around Lemuria, trading their ways to each town and village they come across. Robert adds the ability to remove all ailment statuses from the party. If a party member becomes paralysed and cannot act, you can bring in Robert to cleanse them, allowing them to continue in the fight. Robert also provides physical attacks with his bow and has a good amount of the speed attribute, allowing him to fire his bow often. Next up is the Jester Rubella's brother, Tristis. Just like Nora, Tristis can cast haste and interrupt immunity on the party. I found it a little odd that I now had two characters that can do this when I can only have two characters in action at any one point. The reasoning became apparent very soon afterwards in the story. It is at this point you discover that Nora was never really an ally, but instead had infiltrated the party to guide Aurora back to Austria through a magical mirror to be captured and prevented from continuing her goal of recovering the sun, the moon and the stars and fixing the plight that had come over Austria and Lemuria. This reveals that the ones behind all of this are in fact your stepmother and two stepsisters. They had planned to banish Aurora, kill her father the king and take the kingdom for themselves. Whilst imprisoned by Aurora's stepmother, Oengus, a queen's guard of Aurora's late mother, appears and offers assistance in breaking Aurora free. After setting her free, he joins your team and offers a tank role for your party. Oengus can taunt all enemies on screen, making them focus solely on him. He can take a lot of damage as he is heavily armoured. This gives you quite a bit more flexibility, as having all enemies focus on him allows you to switch out the other member at will to provide the buffs, heals and physical or magical attacks needed without worrying too much that the other member is going to take huge damage and be defeated at that moment. The last character to join the team is Jen. Jen provides the ability to stagger and slow enemies whilst attacking. Since losing Nora due to her betrayal, we were without the ability to slow enemies, so having Jen in the party fills that role and more, as her attacks are quite powerful too, especially if enhanced with the correct gem to combat the foes you are currently dealing with. As you traverse through the different zones in the world, you face different elemental type enemies depending on the region you are in. These can be dark foes that are vulnerable to light damage, earth, fire and water that all have their vulnerabilities as mentioned earlier. Seeing as this is the case, it is a good idea to switch the gems in your party's weapons to best combat the enemies in the region. As mentioned in the overview, you can add fire, water and electric to your attacks by using the coloured gems that match that element. Combining 3 of the same coloured gems creates a larger gem that has the same effect but is now more powerful. Over the duration of the game you can make your melee weapon attacks much more powerful this way. Now that you have your party ready and set, you can head towards your ultimate foes, which are your stepmother and stepsisters. Unfortunately, that is pretty much as in-depth as the game goes. You traverse each area fighting random foes scattered around while opening coffers and collecting items. Once in a while you will have a boss fight against a sister or other guardian of the sun, moon and stars, until finally having the final showdown with Aurora's stepmother. As stated in my overview, the puzzles are nothing more than pushing and pulling blocks and shining the light from Igniculus at objects to cast a shadow and reveal a hidden secret. I was hoping the game would offer up some more interesting and taxing puzzles than this, but unfortunately it did not. There was also not enough interaction with the non-playable characters in the world in my mind. Most interactions gave only a few lines of dialogue text that was repeated when spoken to again. The only NPCs that would offer more were the ones that would offer a small side quest such as clearing out a basement riddled with monsters, but even those were few and far between. I also felt the game could have used some voice acting. The only voiceover in the game came from small cutscenes here and there in which a woman would read the scrolling text on screen as the story moved on from one scene to another. I feel giving the playable characters and NPCs voices would have given them more life and relatability. So here we are at my first ever review score. Games Done Wrongish gives Child of Light a 7 out of 10. The story, artwork and combat are interesting enough to grant a more than average rating, however the lack of puzzles, voiceovers and not much interaction with the world around you keeps the game from getting a higher rating in my eyes. The game took me around 12 hours to complete. That was split up into multiple 2 to 3 hour sessions. After 2 to 3 hours I got a little bored of the repetitive battles and needed to take a break and come back to it the next day to finish it. I do think there is fun to be had in this game when it is spread out like this, however a great game would have me glued to the screen much longer usually. That wraps up this month for Games Done Wrongish. I am looking forward to starting over again next month when the new Games with Gold and PlayStation Plus titles arrive. I hope you join me then. If you like this video, please support the channel in any way you can. like, comment, subscribe, or go that one step further and become a patron on my Patreon website, which is at www.patreon.com/GDWI. Thank you, and until the next time, goodbye.